Hey, all you freedom-loving patriots out there, it's Craig Gibson with Sons of Liberty, and this is Constitution Coffee and Service. And to get this one kicked off, we are going to start with our coffee of the week, which is none other than Overwatch Coffee Shop's Code 4. This is our maple syrup and smoky bacon flavored coffee in our Overwatch Coffee Shop line. It's great medium roast, great flavor. I'm not normally one that likes flavored coffees, and I definitely don't like putting anything in my coffee. I'd rather drink it black. But this is actually really good. All the flavored coffees we've got on this line right now are very good. And we're excited that we're going to be bringing out another flavored coffee. And we're also going to be introducing 1 to 2 of our regular coffees, because I believe we have 3 left to introduce. So we're excited about that. Of course, our roaster out of Texas does a great job with these coffees, and the turnaround time to get it to us has been excellent. And we're doing the Code 4 just as a way to show our support for our men and women in blue who are out there risking their lives every single day, and especially right now, to try to keep order and try to keep people safe and try to get the criminals off the street. All right, so to kick this one, or to kick this one off, I guess we already did that. To get this one going, we're talking about Article 2 of the Constitution. Now, last week we did Article 1. If you remember from Article 1, that was talking about the legislative branch of government. Well, this one is talking about the second branch of government, the executive branch. Now, we have talked to people from all over the country, different age groups, and one thing that is absolutely for certain, our education system is failing. And especially with the things that matter, like history, because they don't teach real history. The Constitution, civics. I mean, people have no clue how our government is made up, and these people are going to vote someday. So. All right, but that's a whole different conversation for another day. All right, so the executive branch. What makes up the executive branch? That would be your president and your vice president. And I don't care who you are or who you voted for. If you are an American citizen, President Trump is your president. Vice President Mike Pence is your vice president. I don't care. I don't care if you like him. I don't care if you voted for him. If you're an American citizen, they are your executive branch. All right. So your president and vice president serve for 4-year terms. They can be elected twice and serve a total of 8 years. There are some modifications to that, but we're not going to get into that today. Because it only happens in extreme circumstances. All right, Section 1 of Article 2 actually lays this out. What is the executive branch? We know from Article 1 that the legislature, they pretty much determine when, where, and how elections will take place. Primarily, we do them in November, unless for some reason, some unforeseen circumstance causes a different election time. Whatever the case may be. Section 1 also tells you what the qualifications are to run for president. Well, first of all, you have to be at least 35 years of age. You have to be a natural-born U.S. citizen, which is why at this point in time, without some kind of amendment and ratification to the Constitution, Arnold Schwarzenegger will never be president. As long as you are a natural-born citizen, it is possible to be a natural-born citizen and not live within the country, whether it's due to job or whatever the case may be. You have to have been in the country for 14 years in order to run for president. Section 1, Article 2, also talks about in the event that a president is unable to discharge their duties of office, whether it be because of illness, death, impeachment, whatever the case may be, at which point the vice president would step in. History would show you this happened when President Kennedy was assassinated. The assassination attempt on President Ronald Reagan, which after he recovered and he was able to come back to work and take over his duties again. In the event that both the president and vice president are unable to discharge the duties of the office, at which point Congress would determine who would be running the country until we could have an election. Article 1 also talks about compensation. So the president gets paid to be president, typically, unless you're President Trump and you're just diverting that money back to some other agency, somewhere else where they could use the funds. But you receive a compensation. Now, a sitting president cannot vote himself or herself a raise. It's not like the legislative branch where they just vote themselves a raise because the cost of nail polish went up or whatever excuse they have. So they do have to be compensated. Before the president enters the office, the execution of his duties, he must take an oath. He must take an oath of office. And it's funny when we start talking about oaths because, there's the oath of enlistment that the military personnel take. There's an oath for officers. There's the oath of the president. When you take this oath, you should be taking it seriously. And something that people need to understand, and a lot of people do, okay? Because a lot of people who have served this country, especially in the military, will flat tell you their oath did not end when they left the service. Unfortunately, there are those that don't take it seriously. And they feel if they're no longer a part of the military service or, in politics or whatever job it was, that oath doesn't matter anymore. And unfortunately, we have people within these jobs, including political, that never took the oath seriously to begin with. So the president's oath, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States, and I will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Far too many people do not take their oath seriously. And honestly, except for the fact that you're not going to be a president, you're not enlisting in the military. These oaths are something that American citizens might actually want to look at, might want to consider taking for themselves and for their family. But again, that's for a whole other day. All right, so Section 2 gets into what the duties of the president are. Well, the president is the commander-in-chief of the military and militia. Now, when the Constitution was written, our military was not like it is today. We didn't have an Air Force. We didn't have several branches: Air Force, Marines, Navy, Army, now Space Force. So, at the time that this was written, it was that he would be the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into the actual service of the United States. Now today, there's always that issue, right? When it comes to gun rights, you'll hear a lot of the Democrats talk about how the Second Amendment is outdated, that the Founding Fathers never could have imagined the weapons that we have today. And the fact that we have a National Guard. Okay, so that's their argument, basically that the National Guard is the militia. But when the president calls for the National Guard to come from northern states to protect the southern border, now all of a sudden the Democrats are throwing a fit saying, wait, you don't have that authority. You can't do that. Well, if you're saying they're the militia, then yes, he can. You can't have it both ways. Although they try a lot. Now, the way I see the Second Amendment, and the way I believe it was written, is that the militia is the citizens of the United States, well armed, and ready to defend their state and their country against any oppressor, against any invader, against a tyrannical government. I mean, yeah, they knew, because they were just coming out of a tyrannical government when all this was written and passed. They knew. All right, so the president also has the power to, with the consent and the advice of the Senate, he has the power to make treaties. He has the power to fill seats, whether it's ambassadors or Supreme Court Chief Justices, and just, he has that ability. Now, of course, there's a confirmation process and everything that has to take place, but it is the duty and the responsibility and the right of the president to seat these people and to nominate them to these seats. He also has the ability to fill vacancies during recess. And this has been a hot button topic for several presidents now. I remember for sure when President George W. Bush was in office, when President Barack Obama was in office, and now with President Donald Trump, this has always been an issue because the legislative branch always, the president's overruling us and stepping out of his authority. Well, no, he has the right to do this. He can commission somebody to fill that vacancy during that period. That commission expires at the end of the next session. This can be both good and bad. I mean, you put somebody in there who hasn't gone through the full confirmation process. Well, we don't have the three-ring circus that we've seen through several confirmation processes. You don't have the name calling and the misinformation getting blasted out there in the media. But you can actually see, what is this person going to do in this position? I think we lose focus of that because we get so wrapped up in the media. There's always going to be the back and forth, especially with the different political parties and people siding on one side or the other strictly based on party. So, and we do it too. I mean, we see something in the media and we believe it because it's against the other party. But when we see something, we may not necessarily believe it when it's for the party that we support. All right, Section 3 tells us that he shall from time to time give Congress information in the form of the State of the Union. And anybody who watched the last couple of State of the Union addresses, that has also been a circus. And it has also proven that age does not bring maturity. And I'll let you all draw your own conclusions on that, and based off of what you watched, but we know that it's a circus at that point. Section 4, and this is Nancy Pelosi's favorite section, because this is the one that says that the president, the vice president, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, and high crimes and misdemeanors. And we know from this last impeachment fiasco that we saw that high crimes and misdemeanors is very vague. And, I do wish the Founding Fathers would have been a little more specific with that, because we had a lot of back and forth and just different interpretations of what it meant. And I did find it funny that the one law professor that they had on this panel in front of Congress, who was of the belief that under what was being presented, President Trump did not, what was happening did not fit this definition. And it was just funny to see the immaturity there too, because as soon as he said that, they never asked him another question. Never asked him another question until I think it was either an independent or a conservative that it was their turn to ask questions and speak, and they did address the person. But overall, it was just immaturity. It really was. So, again, everybody's going to draw their own conclusions based on their perception of what they saw during any of these events. But overall, this is what the Constitution laid out in Article 2. It made it pretty straightforward. It's real simple. Okay? All right, guys, so next week we're going to talk about Article 3 and the third branch of the government. Anybody want to take a guess of what that is? That's right. It would be the judicial branch. So that's going to be a fun one to tackle. For our service portion today, I want to give a big shout out to the Collinwood Police Department. So Dylan and I come in this morning, we're doing our thing like we always do, getting things ready for the day. And all of a sudden the alarm went off. We had a little bit of a malfunction with the alarm system. We thought it was off, and apparently it wasn't. And between motion sensors and the camera system, it picked up movement and sound and went off. So really in no time at all, a Collinwood police officer shows up. Now luckily, Dylan had already met this guy before, back when we first opened, and he could see Dylan in the window, and it appeared everything was okay. He came in, real nice guy. We kind of laughed about the situation, but it was just good to know that the response time was excellent, that they will be here when that alarm goes off. They're not just going to blow it off. Typically they're not going to be so busy with something else that they're not going to make it here. It's a great thing about being in such a small area. We get to meet a lot of our officers, and as they come in, we start to get to know them. And especially right now, we've always done our best to support our law enforcement, our military, our first responders. But right now, we really got to make sure we do that. Now, we don't have the issues down here with the rioting and that. But here's the thing. When you start to get to know these officers, whether it's our local Collinwood police or Wayne County Sheriff's deputies, and there's one of those that I have been fortunate to really start to get to know really well and know his family. And I got to tell you, you worry about these men and women out there doing the job, risking their lives. But when you start to get to know them on a personal level, you're even more concerned for their safety. Like I said, luckily down here we don't have that issue going on. There are always issues that could lead to a dangerous situation for these men and women, but we just thank them for being there to do the job that other people won't do. I know there's a lot of bad stuff going on right now, and there's a lot of bad publicity based on a handful of officers that have abused their power. But overall, a majority of the police that I have had the pleasure of meeting and encountering have all been decent people. So definitely big thank you to Collinwood Police. Glad you guys are here. All right, so on a side note, next Friday, which would be June the 12th, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Collinwood Drugstore, which is just down the parking lot from us here, they are going to be having a blood drive. They're going to be giving away some little prizes and stuff, and if you have the ability to give blood, do. Blood donations save lives, because there are so many different things that can be made from whole blood, which is typically what they take out, unless they are specifically going after plasma or platelets or something like that. Typically, they draw the bags of whole blood. If they're still doing it as they were when I worked for a blood center in Denver, they get it to their lab. Of course, they're going to test it. They have to test it to make sure there's nothing in there. That is something that came out of the whole AIDS and HIV virus and epidemic that back in the 80s, and it can the science continued to find new ways to root out any blood that was going to make people sick. But they take it back to the lab. Of course, it's tested, it gets spun down. If they need to make a certain product, maybe they need to separate the plasma or the platelets, the packed cells, or they can do it as whole blood. Now, the cool thing is, Blood Assurance, I believe, is the agency that's going to be out here doing this. And Blood Assurance is where Wayne County gets their blood products. So you never know, guys. This blood could save the life of a friend, a family member. It could save your life. So please, if you have the ability, if you're healthy, if you're physically able, if you meet the requirements in weight, and they'll have a whole little questionnaire when you come in for it. If you meet the requirements and you can do it, please do. They'll have refreshments, especially after you've given blood. They don't want you passing out there. And like I said, they're going to be giving away some prizes, some really cool prizes. So I really hope you guys will come by. Like I said, they're just right down the parking lot from us. If you're from the area, you probably know where Wayne County Drug or Collinwood Drug is. Come in, donate some blood, and do something good. Save a life. Blood donations have been a big thing with the virus. Right now, with all the rioting going on, there's a good chance we could need some blood out there to help save some lives. All right, guys. Be in prayer for our nation. Be in prayer for our men and women in blue. Be in prayer for our citizens. And as always, faith, not fear. We'll talk to you next week.